السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه والشكر له على تفضله وامتنانه، ولا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشأنه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه. أما بعد، إخواني في الله، لم يزل الحديث مستمرا عن الموت والقبر والحياة البرزخية. ففي هذه الليلة إخواني في الله, we shall look at سوء الخاتمة, the evil end. Tonight, إخواني في الله, we shall look at the evil end. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us from the evil end. إخواني في الله, there's a person who is very famous amongst the scholars, very famous in Saudi Arabia and these countries around it in the Gulf. This man, can you see this photo? This man is a very famous man amongst the scholars, so popular that this man was once considered to be the Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah of our time. Do you see this photo of this man? Are you seeing it clearly? This man, Ikhwani Fillah, was known as Shaykh al-Islam of this time. This is a person who was praised by the scholars and considered to be amongst the scholars. What is the story of this man, and what do we learn from his story? This man, Abdullah AlQaseemy. This man is called Abdullah ibn Ali AlQaseemy. This is our lecture for tonight with regards to the evil ending. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran,
وَنُقَلِّبُ أَفْئِدَتَهُمْ وَأَبْصَارَهُمْ كَمَا لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهِ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَنَذَرُهُمْ فِي طُغْيَانِهِمْ يَعْمَهُونَ. Allah
subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَنُقَلِّبُ أَفْئِدَتَهُمْ وَأَبْصَارَهُمْ كَمَا لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهِ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَنَذَرُهُمْ فِي طُغْيَانِهِمْ يَعْمَهُونَ. Ikhwani fillah, this man that I've shown you the picture of, his name is Abdullah ibn Ali al-Sa'idi al-Qasimi. This man was born in the year 1907 of the Christian calendar, and he died in the year 1996 of the Christian calendar. He was born in Saudi Arabia, in a place called Buraida in Qasim. This man, his parents were divorced at an early age, and he was taken care of by his mom. One day he decides to set out to look for his father, and he searches for his father until he finds him after great difficulty. Then he stays with his father until the year 1922, when his father passes away, and he continues studying under the scholars until he gets accepted in the great university in the Islamic world at the time, the University of Azhar, that is in Egypt. This is one of the most prominent universities in Islamic history in terms of producing Islamic scholars. So this man, he joined Jami'atul Azhar. When he was in his fourth year, one of the sheikhs, one of the ulama in Azhar, Sheikh Yusuf al-Dajawi, Ahad ulama al-Azhar, he wrote a book that it was permitted for you to make dua to the righteous people who are dead. It is permitted for you to go to the grave to make tawassul with the people in the grave. So this man of Azhar, he said that this is not a shirk. But this man, Abdullah AlQaseemy, that we're talking about, he wrote a rebuttal. He refuted this sheikh, and he wrote Al-Buruq al-Najdiyya fi iqtisahi al-dhulumat al-Dajawiyya. He wrote this excellent book refuting this sheikh of Azhar, Yusuf al-Dajawi, and showed clearly that you as a Muslim, you cannot make dua except to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot call anyone, Ya Hussein, Ya Muhammad, Ya Isa, Ya Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, Ya Abd Ahmed Adawi. You cannot make dua except to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When this book was written and published, the scholars were amazed by this young man. But this Sheikh Yusuf al-Dajwi, he got very angry. And he complained to the academic board in Azhar University that this student has insulted me. This student has spoken badly about me. So the university in 1932 decided to investigate this young man. And they investigated him. And they ruled upon him that he has to be expelled from Azhar University. I did not finish his education. Thereafter, he wrote a book, شيوخ الأزهر والزيارة في الإسلام. He wrote this excellent book, الفصل الحاسم بين الوهابيين ومخالفيهم. This man became very popular amongst the scholars until the scholars considered them to be one of them. The scholars used to say that this man is like Shaykh al-Islam Ahmed ibn Taymiyyah in our time. Even Sheikh Rashid Rida, one of the famous scholars of the time, tried to defend him, tried to ask Azhar to admit him back to the university, but they did not accept that. Another man called Muhammad Husaynain al-Haykal wrote a book about the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he claimed that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam did not have any miracle except for the Quran and no other miracle. So this man, Abdullah ibn Ali AlQaseemy, he refuted this man and said an excellent point. He says, you, Muhammad Haykal, you're denying that, you're accepting that the surgeons in our time can cut or open the chest and remove the heart, yet you're rejecting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his angels are capable of that. Wasn't that a miracle for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam? So this man, mashallah, he started becoming very famous with his rebuttals against the people who were misguided. Then another Shi'i man from the Rafida from Syria, Muhsin al-Amili, he wrote a book, كشف الارتياب في اتباع محمد ibn Abdul Wahhab. He wrote a book insulting or talking negatively about Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Once again, this student of knowledge, this Shaykh, he wrote an excellent book in 2 volumes, الصراع بين الإسلام والوثنية. He wrote this book, الصراع بين الإسلام والوثنية. Let us see how this man journeys. إخواني في الله, when he wrote this book, وقد لقي هذا الكتاب قبولا عظيما عند أهل العلم. All the scholars in the world, they loved this book. The war or the fight between Islam and polytheism. So much so that the Imam of Haram, the Imam of Mecca, the Khatib of Mecca, Sheikh Abdullah Abu Samh, also the Mudir or the headmaster or the principal of Darul Hadith in Mecca, he praised this man with lines of poetry. He says, صراع بين الإسلام وكفر يقوم به القاسمي شجاع ألا لله ما خط يراع لنصر الدين واحتدم النزاع. He's praised even by the Khatib of Mecca. Now look at how things stand for this man, ikhwani fillah. King Abdul Aziz at the time, the founder of Saudi Arabia, the scholars, they came to him and they gave him this book, الصراع بين الإسلام والوثنية. And when he read it, the scholars say to him, لقد دفع القاسمي مهر الجنة بهذا الكتاب. يا سلام. لقد دفع القاسمي مهر الجنة بهذا الكتاب. Al-Qasimi, this man Abdullah AlQaseemy, he has paid the mahar of Jannah, the dowry of Jannah, with this book. And this man became arrogant. He became prideful. And the scholars, they loved him. For this man was defending the deen, the same way Shaykh al-Islam Ahmed ibn Taymiyyah, who passed away in the year 728 of the Hijri calendar, was doing at his time. This man, Khanifillah, he disappeared for a while. And he started mixing with evil friends. And shortly thereafter, in the year 1947, when he was about 40 years of age, he shocked the Muslim world. And all the Muslims around the world were shocked when he wrote his book, هذه هي الأغلال, that these are the chains. He wrote a book claiming that these are the chains. He claimed that every belief that a Muslim has, that is a chain that is locking them up. He says, I went to Mecca and I went to the cave where the Prophet ﷺ was revealed to the Quran. Is this the place that Allah chose to reveal his last message to mankind? This small space in a hidden place. I do not accept Islam. I reject Allah. I am no longer a Muslim. I am an atheist. So this man, from being known as one of the great scholars of his time, so much so that he has reached the level of Shaykh al-Islam Ahmed ibn Taymiyyah, الآن صار ملحدا كافرا من عدو الإسلام والمسلمين. And ikhwani fillah, this man, he continued with his kufr for over 50 years until he passed away in the year 1996 in Egypt. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us a good end. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَنُقَلِّبُ أَفْئِدَتَهُمْ وَأَبْصَارَهُم كَمَا لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهِ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَنَظَرُهُمْ فِي طُغْيَانِهِمْ يَعْمَهُونَ. Imam Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, in his book Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, he mentions the following story. He says, from the events of the year 248 of the Hijri calendar, from the events of the year 248 of the Hijri calendar, Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahim passed away, la'natullah alayh. He says, Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahim passed away in this year, may Allah's curses be upon him. He says, كان من هذا الشقي من المجاهدين كثيرا في بلاد الروم. This man, Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahim, ikhwani fillah, he memorized the Quran. He was حافظ القرآن. وكان يصوم كثير الصيام. He used to fast often. وكان قوام. He used to spend his nights in قيام الليل. وكان كثير الجهاد ضد الروم. And he used to fight a lot of jihad against the Roman Empire, the Byzantines. So one day, as the Muslims have surrounded a castle or a fortress of the enemies of Islam, of the Byzantines, for days, very difficult to conquer this castle. This man, Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahim, he sees a Christian lady in the window. And he's obsessed with her. This is a very beautiful lady. And he says to her, "Ma sabilu ilayk?" How do I reach you? The lady says to him, "Tanassar, become a Christian." He says, "Idhan af'al, I shall do so." All these events at night. He goes up to the castle. He sleeps with the lady. In the morning, the Muslims are praying Salatul Fajr. And the way of the Muslims from those days till this today is we ask about each other in the mosque. We are the people of Salatul Jama'ah. So you see, where is this brother? He's always with us in the mosque. Where is Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahim? I do not see Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahim. They don't know what's happened. So after Fajr, Ishraq, they gather the lines and they're ready to fight the enemies. And as they're ready to fight the enemies, they see Abdullah ibn Abdul Rahim coming out of the window. And he has a lady with him. What's happening here? The enemies of Islam, they tell him, even you guys, welcome to our religion. Your brother has become one of us. He has become a Christian. The Muslims lose all their morale. This is a person of salah, a person of siyam, a person of jihad, a person of khayrat. Tarak ad-din. He leaves the religion and becomes a Christian. They lost all morale to fight. وَرَجَعُوا إِلَى بُلْدَانِهِمْ. And they went back to their countries, or to their country. Years later, they passed by this palace. And they say to him, Ya Abdo. They see this man. They say to him, Ma fa'ala Qur'anuk. What happened to your Qur'an? Wa ma fa'ala siyamuk. What happened to your fasts? Wa ma fa'ala jihaduk. What happened to all the jihad you used to do? Dude, wa ma fa'ala a'maluk. And what happened to all your good deeds? This man, ikhwani fillah, listen to what he says. He says, I'lamu anni qad nasitu al-Qur'an. Know that I have forgotten the entire Quran. إِلَّا قَوْلَهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى. Except where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, رُبَّمَا يَوَدُّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْ كَانُوا مُسْلِمِينَ ذَرْهُمْ يَأْكُلُوا وَيَتَمَتَّعُوا وَيُلْهِمُوا الْأَمَلَ فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. This is the only verse that I can remember. رُبَّمَا يَوَدُّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْ كَانُوا Muslimin. Perhaps the ones who have disbelieved will wish they remained Muslims. This is the only verse that you can remember from all the Quran. He memorized 6,200 plus verses. The only verse you can remember is this one. Perhaps the ones who disbelieved will wish they remained Muslims. And this man, ikhwani fillah, he died upon kufr. He died upon shirk. The Prophet ﷺ, from the most dua that he used to make, he used to say, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. O turners of hearts, make my heart firm upon your faith. Ikhwani fillah. And our third example, our last example, ikhwani fillah, as mentioned by Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah in his book At-Tadhkira, he says, كان بمصر رجلا ملتزم الأذان وعليه بهاءة العبادة. He says in Egypt, there was a man who used to give the adhan every single day. وَكَانَ عَلَيْهِ بَهَاءُ الْعِبَادَةِ. And he had the nur, he had the light of ibadah on his face. وَأَنْوَارُ طَاعَةِ. And the light of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَرَقِيَ يَوْمًا الْمَنَارَةِ. One day he went up to the minara, to give the adhan ka'adatihi, as he used to give every single salah the adhan. As he's going upstairs to give the adhan, he looks to the neighbor's house and he sees a beautiful Christian lady from the Coptic Christians of Egypt. Very beautiful. ترك الأذان. He left the adhan. ونزل عندها. And he goes downstairs to her. He knocks the door. She opens, she says, ما شأنك وماذا تريد? What is your affair and what do you want? قال أنت أريد. He says, I want you. فقالت لماذا? Why do you want me? قال سلبت لبي وأخذت بمجامع قلبي. He says, you have taken my heart, you have taken my breath away with your beauty. قالت لا أجيبك إلى ريبة. I shall not fornicate with you. قال أتزوجك. I shall marry you. قالت له أنت مسلم وأنا نصرانيا وأبي لا يزوجني منك. You are Muslim, I am a Christian, and my father will not marry me off to you. قال إذن أتنصر. He says, I shall then become a Christian. قالت إن فعلت فعلت. If you do so, I shall marry you. So this man, he left the adhan, he became a Christian. But this lady was not believing him. So she says to him, you're just playing games. Take this alcohol and take this pork to prove that you are indeed the Christian that you're claiming to have been. So this man, he takes the alcohol, he takes the pork to prove that he is not upon Islam no more, and the alcohol that he has never had experience with does not make him tipsy, it makes him high, it makes him intoxicated immediately. Then he goes upstairs like he used to go every time. فسقط منه فمات فلا هو بدينه ولا هو بها. Imam al-Qurtubi says that this man went upstairs when he became intoxicated and he fell down from the roof and he broke his neck. فلا هو بدينه ولا هو بها. He did not remain on his faith, yet he did not even benefit with a woman. He lost his deen and he lost his religion. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he says, إن رجل لا يعمل الزمان الطويل بعمل أهل الجنة. A man will act upon the deeds of the people of Jannah. ثم يختم له عمله بعمل أهل النار. And from his last deeds, he will act upon the way of the people of the hellfire. فيدخلها. And he'll enter the hellfire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran, وَنُقَلِّبُ أَفْئِدَتَهُمْ وَأَبْصَارَهُمْ كَمَا لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهِ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَنَظَرُهُمْ فِي طُغْيَانِهِمْ يَعْمَهُونَ. So, إخواني في الله, from the most important things that you always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الحور بعد الكور. Oh Allah, you have guided me to the correct path. Please, oh Allah, grant me thabat. That is why in every single salah, you say, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Oh Allah, guide me to the correct path. And if I'm on that path, make me steadfast, make me thabat on that path. Ikhwani fillah, it is important to be a Muslim. Saying La ilaha illallah is it's a great blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But also dying upon La ilaha illallah is also a great reward. اللهم اجعلنا خيرا مما يظنون واغفر لنا وارحمنا على ما لا يعلمون ولا تؤاخذنا بما يقولون وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.